Good evening, viewers. My name is Rahul Desai, and hereby welcome you all to today's milestone in our journey of hydration in diabetes with our host, Dr. Sanjay Kalra sir, and our speaker for today's module, Dr. Ashok Kumar Rohila sir. Dear viewers, today is the Festival of Colors, and on behalf of our team, I wish all the viewers a very happy Holi. Viewers, the topic for today is water, the mega nutrient. And like me, you all are very eager to listen to today's module. But before I hand over the platform to our respective dignitaries today, let me have the opportunity of announcing the names of those doctors who have answered the quiz questions correctly in last module. And the names are Pratik, can you please share the slide? Dr. Vishal Shekhar from Bihar, Dr. Nitin Goswami from Gujarat, Dr. Mohammad Ashraf Nanda and Dr. Shahid Hussain Sofi from Jammu and Kashmir. From Madhya Pradesh, we have Dr. Jitendra Soni Kala and Dr. Madhuri Raghuvanshi. From Maharashtra, we have Dr. Aspi Mehta, Dr. Hitesh Vora, Dr. Manju Vasudev, Dr. Nita Kochar, Dr. Jitendra Luthra, and Dr. Atul Doshi. So, congratulations to all the winners. And with this, I hand over the platform to Dr. Kalra sir and our speaker, Dr. Ashok sir.
Thank you, Rahul, and good evening, everybody. Wishing everyone a happy and colorful Holi, and may your life be full of colors. We are in this journey of learning about water. We've already had two talks by experts, and this discussion about hydration, about water, has actually left me thirsty for more knowledge. I really want to know if water is essential for life, why don't we call it a nutrient? We classify nutrients in so many ways, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, minerals, vitamins, electrolytes. Why have we never counted water as a nutrient? Let's see if this thought process is correct. And to share this with us, we have Dr. Ashok Kumar Rohila from Panipat in Haryana. Warm welcome, Dr. Ashok.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Ashok, we have doctors logged in from across the country. So happy Holi to you, a very colorful Holi to you. And
Thank you, sir. Same to
the first question that is coming across from the audience is, sir, what is your favorite beverage?
you. Sir, my favorite beverage is water. I will say water, which is, and many times when, of course, the water is the main adjuvant in almost every case, and sometimes the preference will change from occasion to occasion. But obviously, the favorite drink is water, sir.
Is water. And so a happy Holi to you from Sadam Deshwali ji, Ajay Kumar ji, and Deepak Dhamecha ji, and also Nitin Narula. And with this, perhaps you'd like to begin your talk and explain to us what water is and what its nutritional value is.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the starting with the lightning conversation. First of all, happy is not only the festival of the colors, but I will say it's a festival of colors plus water. Whenever there is scarcity of the colors, we always try to use water and adjust with that. So, water in the morning, we all have played holy with colors and the water. And at the outset, I'm really thankful to Sanjay Kalra sir for allowing me opportunity to speak on this particular topic. And as the sir have already said that he is more thirsty about the knowledge about the water, I think the same situation is with me. For the first time, I feel that I'm sensitized about the need of learning more about the water. We as an endocrinologist, when we are seeing in our OPD, many of the patient, we always advise them to take more water. And especially in type 1 diabetes, when we are discussing about the sick day rule, in sick day rule, the use of water is very integral, and we always say whenever you get sick, any patient of type 1 diabetes, we say that you should take plenty of liquids, and in that liquid the major portion should be water. So that is what we explain to our patients. And uh, can I have slides, please? So coming to the main topic, that is hydration in diabetes, and in continuation to that, what is the nutritional value of the water, where we categorize it when it comes to the classification as a nutrient. Well, is the water the mega nutrient because it forms the a major portion of our body, and that varies from the 55 to 70% depending on the different age group. So with that, next slide, please. The flow of presentation is that we'll discuss something about the why the water is the elixir of life, Amrit, or it's a uh, liquid of immortality. We will discuss a little bit about the nutrients, what is the definition of a nutrient, and what is the classification of micro, macro, and mega nutrient. Mega nutrient excess and deficiency, like what we discuss when we are discussing with any other nutrient, for example, carbohydrate deficiency and excess. Similarly, micronutrient deficiency and excess, and journey of water and public hygiene in very brief. Next slide, please. So, why I say that the water is the elixir of life? Well, water provides the immortality to the not to a particular individual, but to the species. It is difficult for a species to survive and perpetuate without the availability of the water. What we have seen, whenever there is a drought, there is a migration of the animals and the human beings, and that is why the water is very essential, and it is for the perpetuation of the species, and it is the elixir of life, or the liquid of the immortality. Next slide. Samundra Manthan, we all know that in this Samundra Manthan, the churning of the Samundra brought out the Amrit, which was which they drink, and the Asuras didn't get it. So that is why they become immortal and Asuras become mortal, and this was all because of the Vishnu. What I want to convey from this, that the whenever we are discussing about the water immortality or the Amrit, everything revolves around the water. Next. So, what is a nutrient? A substance that is needed to keep a living thing alive and help it grow and perpetuate is a nutrient. Now, depending on the amount in which it is required in the body, we can classify nutrients into micro, macro, and the finally mega nutrient, depending on the percentage of which is required. If it is required in very small quantities, we say it is micronutrient, less than 1% of the total dry weight. If it is required in large quantities, it is a macronutrient. And when it is required in very, very large quantities, then it is a mega nutrient. Next slide, please. So the micronutrients are the elements, for example, the elements which are zinc, selenium, manganese, iron, copper, chlorine, and we all know about the iodine. If iodine deficiency is there, it will lead to hypothyroidism, goiter, and what we all know, if we go into the history of the endemic cretinism and endemic goiter, we will see that the single simple step of the fortification of the table salt with the iodine have led to dramatic reduction in the incidence of the goiter and cretinism. So this is what we know, that how important micronutrients are. Next slide, please. Macronutrients are the elements which are present in the large amounts in the tissue, and they are in excess of the 10 millimole per kg of the dry matter. Macronutrients include carbohydrate, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, and calcium and magnesium. So these are multiple macronutrients which are required and are required for the formation of the proteins, carbohydrate, and fats. Next. Now, the next important nutrient which is required in the body is the water aqua. Water forms the almost 70% of the 70 to 75% of the body of a newborn, and depending on the different age group, the percentage of the water in body varies. In the adult male, the percentage is roughly 55 to 60%, and in the infant the percentage is more. That is why we see that the dehydration or the issues related with the, if the poor feeding is there, dehydration is very common in the infancy. And so it is also common, it is also frequently seen in the elderly population also, but the dramatic manifestations or the good amount of the data which we are having is from the pediatric population when it comes to the dehydration. Next, please. Now, the different theories are there about the origin of life. Why I want to put it that the even the evolution or the evolution of the living beings also is postulated to have originated in the water. That is why water is very important, and different the common ancestral theory says that there was a common ancestor of the every living being on this earth, and the probable origin was in the water, submarine water. In it was in submarine water and with in the alkaline milieu of the sea. Next, please. Now, the most abundant nutrient in the human beings is the water. Water by the human, as I have discussed, that 75% of the infant. Now, what is the practical relevance of this percentage of the different, according to the different age group? As I mentioned, that the dehydration, that is why the dehydration is more frequent in the infants, and what we see during the diarrhea and vomiting, it is very frequent. Dehydration is also common in the adults also, but the adults they tolerate it better than the younger and the very elderly population. Next. Now, we know that the nutrient excess and the deficiency lead to the pathological states. Does it hold true for the water also? Well, yes. Excess and deficiency of water leads to the pathological conditions. What we know that if the intake of the carbohydrate or the fats is more, then it will lead to the, with decreased physical activity, it will lead to the gain in the weight. If there is excess of the some of the micronutrients, for example in the for example copper, we all are aware about the Wilson's disease, in which there is a defect in the excretion of the copper. So the dietary intake may not affect that much, but this is what we simply, if the iodine excess is there, if somebody is having iodine excess and deficiency, both can lead to the pathological conditions. In the same manner, excess and deficiency of the water can lead to the pathological conditions. Next slide, please. So, what are the conditions in which we see excess of the water in the body or the fluid retention? Chronic kidney disease, any end organ disease will affect the water homeostasis in the body, be it chronic kidney disease, chronic liver disease, congestive heart failure, protein energy malnutrition, particularly kwashiorkor, in which there is deficiency of the protein and lead to the fluid retention. Nephrotic syndrome, again high loss of the protein, and that also lead to the fluid retention. And therapeutic fluid overload is also seen sometimes in hospitalized patient, and this I have observed in one of my close friends relative in the postpartum time, when she was given more of the fluid and she almost landed up in the congestive heart failure. So this is also one of the condition which in which excess of the water is seen. Now, why we need to treat it? Why need to maintain it? Because to maintain the normal homeostasis and to maintain the normal weight, it is very important that the water should be in a appropriate uh, quantity in the body. Next, please. Now, the deficiency states of the water. Deficiency of the water in the body is seen in the many of the pathological conditions. Diabetes insipidus is also one of them. Hypernatremia, which is not a cause of the water deficiency, but is a manifestation of the water deficiency. When there is excessive loss of the fluid from the body, then it leads to the hypernatremia. We also see water deficiency when a patient of diabetic ketoacidosis or hyperosmolar non-ketotic coma is coming to us. Now, last but not the least, and is one of the most common condition which we see, uh, in which we see water deficiency, is in the pediatric population. Whenever there is chronic diarrhea and vomiting, it can lead to the water deficiency. And even many other conditions, when when the oral intake is poor, it can lead to the water deficiency. And sometimes the water deficiency, mild to moderate, mild water deficiency may not be that obvious clinically, but actually patient is, or a person is very uncomfortable about that. So this is how we see that the water deficiency and excess, like any other micro or macronutrient nutrient, will affect the body in pathological states and in the normal physiological states. So we can simply say that yes, water is a mega nutrient, and it need to be taken in proper quantity in the body. So our kidneys are very well equipped with the mechanisms to maintain the normal homeostasis. Now, diarrhea, as I have discussed, is a leading cause of death in children. And next slide, please. Now, the most important treatment for the diarrhea, vomiting, and the dehydration is the water which contain electrolytes into it. And what we say technical, or the name is ORS, oral rehydration salts. ORS was a breakthrough in the management of the diarrhea, and the mortality significantly came down by the simple measure of using the water with electrolytes that was in the form of the ORS. So water with the electrolytes is very important. Next slide, please. Now, other therapeutic uses of the water include dehydration. I already mentioned. Adjuvant. Water is adjuvant to the any therapy, in almost every therapy in the hospitalized patient, be it the injectable therapy in which it can be used as diluent, be it IV therapy in which IV fluids are used, in which the base or main base is the water, in which electrolytes and the glucose is added. It is used in the treatment of the hyperglycemia. We always give a bolus in the starting, and it is used in treatment of that also. In renal stone therapy, if the patient is having renal concretions and not obvious stones, then we always advise that okay, you take plenty of the water so that the whatever the concretions are there can get washed away. Heat exhaustion, it is a treatment of the heat exhaustion, we know. And whenever there is a summer season, we always advise to take plenty of the water to avoid. Sick day rule in type 1 diabetes, as I have already mentioned, is it is very important to take plenty of liquid. Fluid therapy is in almost every hospitalized patient, whether human or veterinarian. Uh, Water is very important. Next, please. Next slide, please. Now, the different waters are types of the water which are used. One is the tap water. Pros and cons means it is affordable and used in household, but the difficult part is that many times it is contaminated with plastic and many other things. So, need to be used with caution if there are no other options available. Next, please. Mineral water, it is fortified with the different minerals suitable for drinking. Negative part is that it is packaged and the bottle disposal is required. Cost is also an issue. You can difficult to drink packaged mineral water each and every time. Next. Distilled water, it is purified water and removes the almost everything from the water. It is demineralized, so it is not so suitable for the drinking. Next, please. Now, what is the trend actually? Now, the recent trend which we are seeing is about the alkaline water, and the water which is purified through the copper water purifiers and is fortified with copper. Well, we can say that simply at present there is no concrete evidence in favor or against of these types of the water. Alkaline water, they say, prevent renal stones and maintain normal alkaline body milieu. But the negative part is that If we take it, it may neutralize the gastric acids and which may further prevent the degradation of the bacteria. So right now there is no concrete evidence. I would like to have the views of the house in it. And one more type of water which I have also tried once is the glacier or the spring water. The taste is very good. It is once I was in Himalayas, so I tried that. The taste is very good and the water tastes so different. But if we are getting for the packaged glacier or the spring water, it is very costly. So far from the reach of uh, common person. So if there are any questions, next slide, please. I think we are having two questions. So the quiz questions for the quiz for the today is which of the statement is whether the statement is true or false. Distilled water is demineralized. However, since the purification have removed harmful substances, is it fit for the drinking purposes? We have to choose between true and false, A and B. So next question of the quiz. Which of these is not a therapeutic use of the water? Treatment of the heat exhaustion, management of hypertension, management of the hyperglycemia, management of the renal stone. Well, question sounds very simple, and I think with that I'll hand over the uh, mic to Sanjay sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ashok. That was a really nice presentation. And even I have understood that actually water is a nutrient. The same kind of respect that we give to diet, to nutrition, the same kind of respect that we give to proteins, carbohydrates, fats, or to vitamins, minerals, or electrolytes, that same should be given to water. And like you had rightly pointed out, Dr. Ashok, of course, it's a beverage. As a standalone nutrient, also, it's fine. It's useful. We cannot survive without water. But along with other things as well. And here, for the purposes of this particular discussion, let's talk about other things like electrolytes. There also, it's useful. So many questions coming in, Dr. Ashok. Uh, Aditya Vardhanji says that I consume Enerzel Zero, which is a zero calorie drink. That is fine, Aditya, because it has the exact electrolytes. So, Dr. Ashok, now summer is approaching. There will be heat exhaustion. Many of us go to the gym. We exercise a lot. So, how do we
Yes.
maintain our health during the hot season?
Yes, sir. During the hot season, the most important part is that the heat exhaustion is very, very common. And if somebody is particularly working outdoors, then it becomes more troublesome. So in that case, it's important that the water intake should be there should be plenty of water intake, and that water should not be always plain water. Many times intermittently it need to be fortified with the adequate amount of the electrolytes.
Right. And another question, again from Aditya ji, what about Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi? What is the status?
Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi, sir, well, it doesn't contain much of the, I will say, electrolytes, but you cannot take it on routine basis. Of course, if you want to take it for taste, then it's a different thing. Otherwise, and especially if you are talking about the children, then the artificial sweeteners which are used in it are not recommended, particularly in the younger age group. So in adults, sometimes you can have it if you like the taste, especially if somebody is diabetic, then they can have it. But as such, I will not recommend in particular to take it as such that you use it on routine basis something. But yeah, sometimes you can have it.
So sometimes you can have, and if you have too much of this, it also changes the microbiome of the gut. The gut flora will also change. One question coming from Dr. Niaz Ansari, Dr. Niaz Ahmed Ansari. He says that with ORS solution, sometimes we see that patients worsen. So what should we do? So Dr. Ashok, if you could structure your answer, if you could, you're a pediatrician as
Yes,
well. If you could first speak about the pediatric age group and then about adults. So in pediatrics, when do we use ORS? Why do we use it? What happens when we use ORS?
yes, sir. Dr. Niaz, very pertinent question actually. When a kid is having mild to moderate dehydration, then at that time we need not to use the ORS. We can simply use the plain water. We can ask them to have the buttermilk, which is with little amount of the salt into it. When the kid is moderate to severely dehydrated and able to accept orally, at that time we should advise them to take ORS. But at that time also we should not advise only ORS, but rather we should advise ORS intermittently plain water, because otherwise, if the patient is most of the time the patient is hypernatremic, if they dehydrated, and if we are giving plain ORS, that is not going to correct the hypernatremia and may cause worsening. That is why intermittently we need to give the plain water also, so that the normal electrolyte balance get maintained. We need to support the kidneys at that time, so the kidneys can maintain normal flow of the urine and they will balance it out. And they can do kidneys can do this only if we are giving the plain water in between.
This makes it very simple for me to understand. Even I was not aware about this. So this was about pediatrics. Let's talk about healthy adults now, and then about geriatric age group. What are the unique things that we have to take care of?
Sir, most of the time, the healthy adults, they are able to tolerate uh, mild to moderate fluctuations of the body electrolyte and dehydration very well. And if the thirst mechanisms are intact, body will balance out even up to 1% of the dehydration within the next 24 hours. So that osmoreceptors will sense the dehydration, and we will drink it and we will balance it out. But many times because what I have, even I have also observed that when we are busy sometimes we are little bit irritated, and actually we are not aware that we need to drink water. But when we take that water, we actually realize, okay, yes, this was something which I was missing, and now I'm feeling more comfortable. So, coming to the geriatric population, in geriatric population, many times we see the different conditions like the SIADH and the other uh, dyselectrolemia. At that time, we should particularly advise patient to take adequate amount of the water. We should think about the urine flow, if the urine flow is good or not. We should also assess the associated comorbid conditions in the geriatric population, whether if there is CKD, then we need to monitor, and we need to have a proper balance sheet need to be maintained about the water intake and the output. uh, and if somebody is on SGLT2 inhibitors in diabetes, then definitely we need to advise more intake of more water, so that UTI and genital mycotic infection can be minimized. So I think you can add something, because uh,
No, that's right. So, what you're saying is right. So, in pediatrics and in geriatrics, we should be even more careful. And especially in geriatrics, when you have someone who is confused, but even in young adults like us, when you get irritated, suddenly I feel happy calling myself a young adult, but Dr. Ashok is younger. So, but irritation, confusion, anger, irritability, these are also signs of hyponatremia. And you have to cover it with both water and with electrolytes. uh, what Dr. Ashok said, we also become irritable. There can be two or three reasons. And this is how we explain to our patients. Either there is too much of poison in your body. Maybe your liver is not working, your kidney is not working, but that will be very rare. That will be in, like 0.001% of the entire population of the country. But the more common reason would be that there is lack of nutrients in your body. How will a car or a motorcycle run if there is no petrol in it or no diesel? So it is possible there is too little of water in you. It is possible there is too little of salt or too little of sugar. And why don't we correct all of them? When we use the word salt in colloquial language, that would mean sodium chloride, table salt. But when you go to the Golgappe wala, now see how many salts and spices he puts in. And each Golgappa Master Ji will have his own unique signature, isn't it? We are all aware of that. So then the patient understands, and we say, let's give you a drink which will have all these things in it. That is how we promote the healthy use of water along with electrolytes. And some of the examples you are aware of, like Aditya ji had just pointed out about Enerzel Zero. So you can use Enerzel, which has got sugar in it, glucose. You can use Enerzel Blitz, which has minimal amount of glucose in it, only 29 calories per 100 ml. and the electrolytes are there. And if you want zero calories from glucose, then Enerzel zero is there. So you have that entire range. Dr. Ashok, this point is very important. So let me ask about your clinic. Now somebody comes to you with ghabrahat in Hindi, or sustu, that would be Kannada. Uh,
Yes.
Somebody coming with ghabrahat, sustu, weakness, feeling of uneasiness. There are 33 crore differentials for that. It can be unstable angina, transient ischemic attack,
Yes,
panic
sir.
attack. But what are the common differentials in summer, and how do you handle them on an OPD basis?
Yes, sir. This is very practical question, actually, sir. For the uh, person who is sitting in a standalone clinic and not having the indoor facility with us, so we cannot straightforward send the patient to the casualty where you go and get some this XYZ test done and get some fluids. So we simply go with the basic approach which we follow. Whenever the patient is coming with this in the summer season, particularly, we ask them to take. To have a good amount of the water. If the patient is diabetic, which is like most of the cases are in our OPD, so we can advise some fluid, which is like, for example, Energyl Zero, we can advise, which is having the electrolytes in the, which is isotonic to the fluids without sugar, and ask the patient to sit comfortably for some time. If after 15-20 minutes patient is saying yes, I'm comfortable, then this is probably sort of mild to moderate mild dehydration which have got resolved, and patient was exhausted and now the patient is comfortable. Then we can simply examine the patient and can go with the routine OPD proceedings. Even after that, if the that problem is persisting, then definitely we need to look into the other causes, sir, as you have mentioned.
Thanks. And Dr. Hitesh Vora raises another point. He says, uh, does it make a difference if the patient has hypertension or not? So let us also structure this. The exact question is, with hypertension, how to give electrolytes during dehydration. So a hypertensive patient with dehydration. So let us structure it. Can you have dehydration and hypertension together? If so, how do
Yes.
you manage?
Yes, sir. Usually, whenever there is dehydration, hypertension don't accompany it. And I'm aware of one condition in which patient is dehydrated and hypertensive also, that is pheochromocytoma, in which there is significant fluid contraction. And uh, even in the pheochromocytoma also, we need to supplement patient with adequate amount of the salts before we subject him to the surgery. So, Dr. Hitesh, it's not a contraindication, rather I will say it is very well indicated. Even if a patient with hypertension is coming with dehydration, we need to give the routine amount of the electrolytes and the fluids to the patient. So there is no conflict in this.
Yeah. So, Dr. Hitesh, there's actually no conflict. Let us take an example of diabetic ketoacidosis. The patient may have a slightly elevated systolic blood pressure, but the diastolic blood pressure will be low, the pulse will be thready, the pulse pressure will be high, and you have to supplement with electrolytes. Now, if we can structure our discussion, if it is an indoor patient, then our approach will be different. And you have to calculate the sodiums, the potassiums, the corrected sodium, that is separate. But in the outdoor setting, we can happily give the electrolyte supplementation that will help. In fact, salt loading is a diagnostic test and it is also therapeutic. Let us say you want to send your pheochromocytoma patient for surgery. It is a good idea to give lots and lots of salt before the patient
So
goes for surgery. Otherwise, patient will crash. Dr. Ashok, another question. This is from Dr. Sanjay Suryavanshi, and he asks about patients with diabetes. Can we give them ORS, or should we stick just to Enerzel Blitz, that is 29 calories per 100 ml, or Enerzel Zero, which is 0 calories?
yes, Dr. Sanjay, Dr. Suryavanshi, we cannot give ORS in the diabetic patient because it contains sugar. uh, yes, we can give the Energyl Zero, in which sugar is not there and only electrolytes are there. So it's a sort of sugar-free electrolytes, which is isotonic we are giving. So that will serve the purpose, and that is actually which we want, the to some fluid without sugar, and can treat the dehydration. So ORS should not be given in diabetes.
So the safest would be Enerzel Zero. We can use that. And otherwise, what are the homemade beverages, Dr. Shok, that you would advise to a child or an adult with diarrhea with acute gastroenteritis?
Yes, sir. The most important or most commonly or most easily available beverages, we can have one glass of water. In that we can add one spoon of the sugar with one pinch of the table salt and little bit of lemon to add the flavor. That is what we can do. This is the easiest which can be done and is available in almost every home, can be given in any almost any patient with the dehydration. In adults, if suppose if in adults they want something for the flavor, then we can give the lemon, fresh lime soda with sugar, that we can give. Of course, if diabetes is not there, in the diabetes the things will be entirely different. And another is we can give the buttermilk. We can give again, the buttermilk should not contain the. It should not be too sweet. Better if it is salted, because if it is having excess of the sugar, again that can cause osmotic diarrhea and may further aggravate the diarrhea if diarrhea is there.
So osmotic diarrhea is something that we should be aware of. It is not that high intake of sugar will cause only increase in micturition. It can also cause diarrhea, and that is how many of the laxatives also work. They are osmotic laxatives that we like lactulose,
Yes,
for example. Dr. Ashok, you are from Haryana, and the motto of Haryana is "Desa mein se desh mara." That means out of all states, out of all countries, we are special, we are unique, we are ND. Jit doodh dahi ka khana. So, what does
yes.
dahi mean to you from a health point of view? As a pediatrician, as a physician, as an endocrinologist, would you want to speak about dahi and health?
Sir, dahi, I will say that dahi is very important component of our diet, and it should be taken. In fact, many of the patients, we always motivate patients to have the milk or milk-related products, because that is a natural source of the calcium. Also, a lot of the patients, or a lot of the people in the Haryana are vegetarians. Actually, when I see percentage-wise in comparison to the south and in comparison to the eastern part of the country, that is Kolkata and Bengal, so vegetarians are more in Haryana particularly. So that makes it more important to take the milk related products, because certain things which can only be found in the milk. So another important thing is that many patients are not able to tolerate milk because of the lactose intolerance, which is sometimes is related also. So in that case, we advise them to take the milk products rather than the directly milk. We can advise them to have buttermilk or the curd. The he is very good in that, sir.
And Dr. Ashok, you worked across the country. You worked in Rajasthan, in West Bengal, and in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh as well.
Yes, sir.
What does this mean? Ek pau perugu in Telugu. And
Yes.
can we suggest this as a treatment for promotion of health, for prevention of disease, and make it an essential nutrient?
So definitely, I'm
And you
big
will have to
proponent of
translate it
milk.
to English also first.
Yeah, yes, sir. Perugu is the curd in a Telugu. So if any of our audience is from the Telangana, నేను బాగా తెలుగు తెలుసు. నేను తెలుగులో చెప్తే ఏమి ఇబ్బంది లేదు. మీన్స్ ఐ కెన్ స్పీక్ తెలుగు అండ్ ఐ కెన్ కన్వే మై ఇన్‌ఫాక్ట్ స్టిల్ till this time I am having many patients on consultation from the Telangana. So I always promote the perugu, means the curd, that they should take. And in fact, sir, in Telangana, the diet, it's very important component of the diet. And how they follow their diet, first they will have the white rice with sambar and some curries. This is round one. Then the second round come, and the final round of the rice is with the perugu, means with the curd. So this is how the means the multi-course meal, how it proceeds. So the last step in that meal is the white rice with perugu and with the chutney, uh, garlic chutney, sir.
Hmm. So it's been great interacting with you, Ashok, Dr. Ashok, and also I'd like to thank everybody who has in been with us on this show, Dr. Hitesh, Dr. Niyaz Ansari, Dr. Sanjay Suryavanshi, and also Aditya ji, Pratipati ji. I acknowledge all the questions that we have got on diabetes, but I apologize we won't be able to take them. There is one more question related to hydration before we conclude. How much water do we need to drink during summer? This question is from Mr. Vardhan.
Sir, water intake will depend on the like weather, physical activity, and there are multiple factors. But the a sedentary adult in a routine season should take at least 1.5 liter of the water. That is rough, and maybe the RDA may be more than that also. So
So, do drink adequate water. How you can define adequate? You don't need to now count every ml that you're drinking in summer. You don't need to ration yourself unless you have some diseases. Dr. Ashok, which are the diseases where you actually have to count water intake?
yes, sir. See, the end organ diseases, for example, the chronic renal failure, we need to count about the water. We need to take water with caution when there is a congestive heart failure with especially significantly reduced ejection fraction. And as far as chronic liver disease is concerned, though the water intake is need to be restricted a little bit, but not to that extent, the extent which we advise in the chronic kidney disease and the advanced congestive cardiac failure.
So, symptomatic heart failure, chronic kidney disease, chronic liver disease, these are situations where you actually have to count water. But otherwise, feel free to drink as much as you want. And in summer, you can look at the color of your urine. If it is becoming dark colored or high colored, it means you are dehydrated. So, it has to be straw colored. So, your urine itself will tell you whether you're drinking adequately or not. Mr. Dr. Loganathan says, how about tender coconut?
Tender coconut contains lots of potassium, sir. So it is a very good drink, I will say, in comparison to at least the carbonated beverages which are available. So potassium, it's a good source of the potassium, and can be taken. Means especially many times if the patient or DK patient, if they want some different fluid, then we allow them to have it because the calorie content is also not very high in there.
Calories are minimal, potassium is high. So, if you have chronic kidney disease, do be careful. That's it. And then there is this coconut malai, which is also quite tasty. So,
Yes, sir.
you can scrape the inner lining, and that is also tasty. It is a good source of nutrition. But Dr. Ashok, I'd like to thank you. Thank you so much for bringing so much of excitement and so much interest in this humble beverage in
Sir,
water.
excitement and the everything is from your side, and means the programs which you craft, like the ideas with with which you came, they are entirely different. Means like this idea about the water, and really amazing, sir.
And to be honest, they are all fueled only by water and by dahi, by water and curd. So, and other things maybe I need to learn from Dr. Ashok, the other uses of water. So, but with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Dr. Hitesh, we need to avoid tender coconut in hyperkalemia. This is a question, Dr. Ashok. Can you take it before we thank you? When to avoid tender
Yes.
coconut water?
Yeah, Dr. Hitesh, it need to be avoided in chronic kidney disease, particularly because the potassium excretion is compromised in that condition. Otherwise, apart from that, I don't think there is any specific condition in which we need to avoid it. Uh, at least I'm not aware of.
And you can encourage in a patient who has diabetic ketosis because their potassium will be low. And when you tell a person with ketosis or ketonuria to drink a lot of water, usually you will find resistance after some time. The child will, or the lady or the gentleman will get upset. Why are you forcing me to drink water? Then tender coconut water is very good. It's a good taste, good flavor, and it will add potassium as well. Yes, Dr. Niaz has also added in rural areas where facilities are limited for managing hypercalcemia, hyperkalemia, then water actually has a role to play. If you have someone with kidney stone, someone with hypercalcemia, the treatment is that you increase excretion of calcium. So, plain water will also help in that. So, thank you, Dr. Niaz, for that best practice. So, Dr. Ashok, I'd like to thank you for being with us, and I'd like to
Thank you,
thank
sir.
everybody who logs in so late in the evening on a Friday. But this is an interesting topic, an important topic, and summer is approaching. The holy month of Ramzan is also approaching, and we should be able to counsel our patients about adequate hydration, not only for water, from a water perspective, but also from an electrolyte perspective. So, with this, I'd like to thank you, and I'll hand over back to Team FDC.
Thank you, Kalra sir, Dr. Ashok sir. It was really a very wonderful and exciting session. For 45 minutes, all our viewers were logged in, and it seemed that this talk should not end. Thank you so much for the wonderful session, sir. And thank you, viewers, for joining us on Friday evening on this weekend. And wish you a very happy Holi once again. Take care. Summer is approaching. Dr. Kalra sir said, stay hydrated. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Good night, sir.